Hello, and thanks for stopping by. I don't know about you, but I really would be lost without tea. I need at least several cups a day to keep me going, especially when I'm making videos. Given though how beloved tea is in Britain, it may come as some surprise to hear that it was in fact coffee which first gained popularity here. This caffeine craze began in 1650, when, as recorded by Samuel Pepys, the nation's first coffee house opened its doors at number 84 the High Street, Oxford, under the tutelage of a Jewish gentleman known only as Jacob. Similar to the manner in which pubs are named, Jacob opted to call his coffee house the Angel, and he remained its owner until 1671, when he sold the business in a deal conducted at the old Southampton buildings in London. Back in Oxford, the site of the former Angel Coffee House is now, rather appropriately, occupied by the city's famous Grand Café. London's first coffee house, meanwhile, opened shortly after the Angel in 1652, and for that we have a fellow named Pasquale Rose to thank. As with Jacob, precious little was known about Pasquale Rose, although it's believed he was born into a Greek community in the former Republic of Ragusa, which is now modern-day Croatia, before moving to Turkey, where he was employed as a servant by an English merchant named Daniel Edwards. In 1651, the pair travelled to London, where, no doubt having heard about the popularity of the Angel in Oxford, Pasquale quickly set about establishing his own coffee house. This pioneering business was located on St Michael's Alley off of Cornhill. The Jamaica Wine House now occupies the spot. And, in order to promote his coffee house, Pasquale had a number of handbills printed. A surviving example of one of these leaflets, which represent the first ever time coffee was advertised in London, is now owned by the British Museum. And on it we can see that, quite rightly, it was stated that the exotic drink quickened the heart, made the heart delightsome, and was also good against sore eyes. Having said that, it did also claim that coffee was good for staving off dropsy, gout and scurvy, which I don't think you get away with suggesting today. The handbill also informed those interested in trying out the new beverage that the coffee was made and sold by Pasquale Rose at the sign of his own head. This sign, like that of the Angel in Oxford, was similar to one you'd have seen swinging outside a tavern, and in this case, as the advert notes, it displayed a portrait of Pasquale himself. It's believed that the image of Pasquale depicted him sporting a grand turban and an impressive moustache, and as such Londoners nicknamed this early coffee house the Turk's Head. Pasquale Rose's coffee house rapidly generated hundreds of imitators within the crowded city, and these establishments soon became the go-to places to socialise, conduct business, and discuss the issues of the day. One such place was Tom's Coffee House, which is located at 216 The Strand, next to Devereux Court and opposite where the Royal Courts of Justice now loom. Being situated at the point where the Strand, which is traditionally seen as the path to Royal London, becomes Fleet Street, where the financial and law districts begin, Tom's Coffee House was a prime piece of real estate. Furthermore, the spot also benefited from the fact that, in the years following the Great Fire of London, many wealthy residents had gravitated westward, meaning plenty of fancy new homes were beginning to define the area. One man in particular who saw the potential of Tom's Coffee House was Thomas Twining. Born in Painswick, Gloucestershire in 1675, Thomas had moved to London at the age of 9, where he was apprenticed to a weaver. This particular trade didn't seem to suit him though, and he ended up working for the East India Company, under which he became a successful merchant. It was in 1706, by which point he was aged 31 and had a bit of cash behind him, that Thomas Twining made the bold move to purchase Tom's Coffee House, and as he moved in to run the business, coffee initially remained the speciality. By now though, tea was around in Britain. It had been made fashionable by Catherine of Braganza, who'd brought a supply with her from Portugal when she came to marry King Charles II in 1662, and it was indeed available in some coffee houses. However, strange as it may seem today, the beverage was largely considered something of a novelty back then, and this wasn't helped by the fact that it was also very heavily taxed. Due to the ornate, delicate equipment required to brew and consume it, tea was also regarded, by early 18th century sensibilities, to be more of a feminine drink. Many women who could afford to do so certainly enjoyed a brew, but for those who did, getting hold of tea wasn't easy. You see, in those days, coffee houses, which were hotbeds for rowdy political debates and testosterone-fueled business wrangling, were a strictly male environment, which women were forbidden to enter. If a woman craved a cuppa, therefore, she would have to send a servant in to do the buying, while she waited outside in a carriage, a bit like an early takeaway if you will. This patriarchal deadlock gave Thomas Twining a brainwave. There was nothing to bar a woman from entering a normal shop, and so in 1717, after acquiring a number of neighbouring properties, he established a tea emporium alongside the coffee house, which was free for all to enter. To give that date some historical context, King George I was on the throne in 1717, Handel and Vivaldi were alive and making music, and on the other side of the Atlantic, the notorious pirate Blackbeard was terrorising the high seas. In other words, it was a pretty long time ago, which makes it rather incredible that this tea shop is still in business on the very same spot today, over 300 years after it first opened. Due to his experience with the East India Company, Thomas Twining happened to be something of an expert on tea, and this meant he was able to offer a wide variety of dry blends available for purchase. His shop on the Strand, along with an eventual relaxation in tax, helped to popularise tea, and it went on to attract many notable customers, including Jane Austen and William Hogarth, who painted this portrait of Thomas Twining as a means of paying off a large bill which he'd run up. It's also probable that Dr. Samuel Johnson, who lived on nearby Gough Square and was a great tea drinker, was a regular customer. Like the angel in Oxford and the image of Pasquale Rosé's head which we saw earlier, Thomas Twining initially employed a tavern-like sign to attract customers, both to his coffee house and adjoining tea shop. In this case, the object was a golden lion, which can still be seen above the entrance today. The shop's small, but grand, entrance was designed in 1787 by Thomas's grandson, Richard Twining, and in that same year it was decided that the family name should be adopted as the company's official branding. The Twining name, therefore, was spelt out in a distinctive black font against a gold background, and as this design is still used by Twinings today, it's widely regarded to be the world's oldest commercial logo that is still in use. Over the centuries, Twinings on the Strand has faced several threats to its existence. The first of these was a major fire, which erupted close by in 1770. As one newspaper at the time reported, this fire burnt down a great part of Mr. Twining's tea warehouse. A further blaze occurred in 1822, which was sparked by a blocked chimney. Luckily, this was extinguished by a group of bricklayers who were working nearby, after they bravely smashed through the chimney wall and doused out the flames. As one report at the time said, had the fire taken hold, the loss would have been immense, their stock always being so expensive. Then, in World War II, the shop suffered considerable bomb damage during an air raid. You can still see crater-like scars from the Blitz on the wall of St Clement Danes Church, which is just across the road from Twinings. So bad was the bomb damage to Twinings, in fact, they were forced to relocate for several years. Their temporary shop was on Hyde Place in Westminster, close to Vincent Square and next to Napier Hall. After much renovation, the shop reopened on the Strand in April 1953, and if you head behind the shop to Devereux Court, you'll find this plaque, which references the war damage and subsequent rebuild. Sticking with Devereux Court, perhaps the biggest hindrance to Twinings came from the pettiness of the parish of St Clement Danes, who, in the 19th century, seemed to harbour a vendetta against the tea merchant, as they were forever attempting to have the tea company prosecuted for allowing their porters to push their carts through the alley. In 1819, this resulted in a 40-shilling fine being issued by Bow Street's magistrates, which was followed by another attempt at prosecution the following year. In this case, though, the judge asked the inspector of pavements, a Mr. Cadogan, who really does sound like he was a total job's worth, why he had not also called every publican in the area to court, as they too were in the habit of rolling barrels across the pedestrian thoroughfares. To this, Mr. Cadogan curtly replied, "I'm not accountable to you for the manner in which I choose to perform my duty." Needless to say, the case in this instance was thrown out. The hounding continued, however, and in 1833 another 40-shilling fine was issued. This led an exasperated Richard Twining Jr. to explain that they used their row court in order to avoid creating obstacles on the Strand, and that if they continued to be prevented from doing so, then they might as well shut up their premises. Thankfully, of course, this never happened, and today, Twinings on the Strand remains a popular destination for both shoppers and tourists alike. The staff here are wonderful, and best of all, towards the back of the shop, you'll find one of London's best little secrets: free cups of tea, which are provided in insightful tasting sessions at a special tea bar. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this look at the history behind London's oldest tea shop. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts about Twinings on the Strand. Have you been there before and indulged in the free tasting sessions? What's your favourite blend? And, perhaps most importantly of all, do you prefer tea or coffee? A controversial question for sure. Please be sure to let me know your preference in the comments. As ever, thank you so much to all of you who left kind comments recently, and also to those of you who've supported me via Ko-fi. I honestly can't express how much your support means to me. If you'd like to donate a small sum to help with the running of the channel, I'll leave links to my Ko-fi account in the description. Any tips are of course greatly appreciated. If you haven't yet subscribed to Rob's London, I'd appreciate it very much if you could please consider doing so, as this, along with ringing the bell icon, will ensure that you don't miss out whenever I publish a new video. Plus of course it'd be great to have you along. Likes and shares are also very much welcome, as they really do help the channel to grow. You may also be interested to know that I have an online store, Rob's Online Designs, where you can purchase an array of London themed mugs, featuring images of tube trains, taxis, buses and so on. You'll find it on Etsy. I'll leave a link in the description. For now, thanks again friends, stay well and please be sure to stay tuned.